Yo, it's your boy Monrroe coming at you from pristine quarantine like everyone else. Hope everyone's keeping safe and keeping well in these hard times. Not easy at all. So yeah, big love to everyone. So today I'm going to try and do my first production run through breakdown. So allow me if I'm a little bit ropey, not used to it. All a little bit alien to me, and I'm not that comfortable. Definitely feel out my depth, but we'll see how we get on. But yeah, so I'm going to break this whole thing down into a few different sections. So we're going to be breaking down Never Too Old with Emily Mackis and kind of go through each element of the track, kind of bit by bit, and I try and be as thorough as possible, picking apart what I do, etc. within Ableton. But yeah, today's episode is going to be, the main focus will be kind of just a rough intro to the whole project overall, and what my kind of default settings are and that in Ableton. And then I was thinking, starting from the top, just kind of start with the drums. We'll go through each kind of element of the drums and cut that down and see how each bit works with each other and how I'll bounce them out into different bits and build different percussive layers from that, etc, etc. So yeah, I hope this all goes well on my behalf, and I hope you guys enjoy it and learn something. Peace. Let's crack on. Okay. Hey. We're this is Ableton, for anybody that doesn't know it. For anybody that doesn't, it's amazing DAW. Do whatever you want in it. Does the same as everything else, just has an amazing workflow, which you just think you don't get with other DAWs. So yeah, props to Ableton. So yeah, here's the project overall. I'll just give it a little playthrough so you can see what's going on with it. So that's what we're going to be breaking down throughout these couple of episodes. I should have thought about this before, but in this project I haven't got the vocals. So the way I've done the vocals on this is how I do the vocals in most of my tracks is I will bounce out the instrumental and then work with the instrumental in another project with the vocals, just because I'm an absolute pagan and for some reason have not upgraded to 64-bit Ableton, so I'm still on 32-bit. So my my CPU damage or use can always take a bit of a beating if I've got too much stuff running. So a lot of what I do, and you'll see throughout this project, is bouncing stuff out just to give myself some room, just to save some heat on my CPU kind of thing. But yeah, so we'll get into vocals in another track. We'll just focus on drums today. But yeah, so I'll give you a quick introduction to my whole project and my whole workflow. You can kind of see already here that there's just a really annoying focus on colour. It's really kind of anal about having stuff in order. So yeah, as you can see, all my drum work, anything percussive up here, all in green, and that'll be the same throughout all of my tracks. It's a good thing to keep in mind whenever you're writing or working on tunes. Is just if you have stuff color coded, keep it the same throughout every project, and then no matter where you are, how long it has been before you've been back to that project, you'll have a rough idea of what's what just by colors. It sounds dumb, but a tidy project's a happy project. You know what I mean? So just roll with it. But yeah, so all my drums in green. This is some solo. So that's my overall drum bus. So that's another thing I do when I'm working. And because I'm another pagan, I'm still on Ableton 9 and not on 10. So I haven't got groups within groups, which is annoying. But my work around that is just by creating buses. So you just create an audio track and set whichever tracks you want to go. So set the output to wherever you want them to be. So for me, because this is drums, I'll send them to my drum bus, and my drum bus down here, and then you just set it in, so you're monitoring what's coming in, etc. So it will take everything I've got getting sent to it will go there, and it will basically act as a group in a group. So it's just my bus basically my way of grouping together a whole section of tracks, and I'll do that throughout with everything, not just drums. So you can see I've done it here with bass and Atmos as well, and yeah, I just find it's a cleaner way of working, and really helps with mix downs, etc. Because you've got them all, you mix them into the buses, and then you mix the buses into the master, etc. It's a nice way of working, I find. But again, it's all personal preference. There's no right or wrong way of doing that. But yeah, here's my bass bus. But won't focus on that too much. I'll get into bass elements in a whole another episode. Then we got Atmos as well. This is kind of just basically just all my pads, any kind of swells, anything that's creating that kind of atmosphere within the track goes into my Atmos buses. And then here in my lovely shade of purple is all my piano bits, any kind of key work as well. So like Rhodes electric pianos, anything like that will go in here. So that's that, and then in the lovely little blue down here, this is kind of all the synth stuff. So we've got a couple instances of Massive doing some ARP sequences, and then some stuff I've rebounced earlier, and some stuff from sample packs, I think, just to create little stabs. But again, I'll probably go in way too into detail in this bit. I'm only kind of just trying to show you guys around, basically. And I've got a vocal bus, but this is just a bus for kind of Atmos vocals, where I've just used little samples. But yeah, nothing major with that. That's just kind of more Atmos than vocals, but I've got them labelled as vocals because they're vocal samples. And then moving on, I've got guitar as well down here. I don't know if you can actually hear it in the full mixdown of the track, but there's very kind of subtle guitar arps and parts going on. And then coming down to the final touches to any track I do, I've always got a layer of noise of some sort. I've got it labelled as Foley here because it varies from track to track of what noise I'm using, but it's normally some kind of found audio that's just been recorded from my little handheld Zoom thing. I don't think any of these are. I know I just said that, but but yeah, one's just a rain sample, and then I think the other's just a vinyl crackle. Oh no, it's woody texture apparently. But both very quiet in the mix. But I just find having a kind of noise layer that just engulfs everything, just sits under everything nicely. It kind of fills stuff out a bit and gives it a bit of depth that you don't quite get by using strictly electronic sounds. I think just having that just tiny little bit of live element just adds something. But again, it's just something I do. It's could be a load of bollocks, but and finally I've just got all my effectsy bits. These are the bits I do last on any track. These are like my sweeps, swells, like reverse cymbals, basically for transitions. So it's just consists of like noise swells and this kind of stuff. But yeah, nothing too exotic in the FX stuff. That's mainly just sample pack stuff because if it's there, I might as well use it. That's what it's there for. I'm a little bit too lazy to make them all myself, but one day I'll get there. So yeah, that's basically all the elements minus the vocals, but we'll get into that, and I'll break down each of these sections properly in full detail a bit more in their sections. But I just thought I'd show you around my my workspace, I suppose. Everyone always has a little I wouldn't say go, but always mentions about my ridiculous amount of sends up here, which there is a lot, I'm aware. Don't hate me. So I'll just talk through these quickly, and then about my master, and then I'll move on to drums. And hopefully I haven't been waffling on for too long. So yeah, on a send day, I've just literally, I think these two here are standard with Ableton 9. They're already on the default project, and I've just been kind of rolling with them since because they just work. But yeah, one's just a reverb. It's just a small room, nothing too major with a bit of decay. But it's good for just giving, especially with like Atmos and leads, it's good just giving that kind of sound a bit of room, a bit of just, you know, the same room, so they're sitting together within this space. If I can. So that's what A is basically, and B's the same thing, just with a bit of delay instead. I just find these two work as a nice kind of glue for more musical elements within the track, rather than percussion or bass or anything like that. So these are more just glue-in stuff. And then these three here are all multi-band compression. C's an extremely harsh brick wall, basically. It just smashed to shit. And all I've done is notched out the kind of mid-range and just kept the kind of lows and the highs. And what that's doing is just smashing the shit out of the low and the top end and compressing it down. Again, it's nothing. I never use it too intensely, but it's just something that gives the low end a little bit of warmth and the high end a little bit of kind of, I'm not gonna say hiss because that's a bad word, but just a bit of life to it, I suppose, and just brings them out in the mix a little bit, just helps them, just supports them. And on D, I've got exactly the same, just not as intense on the compression, and just for the top end. That works quite nicely with percussion, and like the top end of basses just helps them come through the mix a bit. And then with E, it's the same, exactly the same as D on the high end, but with E we're doing the low end. So it's just trying to bring up that sub end mainly, just a little bit, get that poking through the mix a little bit more. And then on F is just a big reverb, so it's got a massive decay time, so it's very like, it can be very messy to use this, but it works quite nice if you combine it with pads and some kind of lead elements. It's nice just to use it subtly to give it, I'll show you here. But yeah, with that, I just find it just can help add to the atmos and the whole character of the track just with that. And then post that, I've got a compressor again, but I'm sidechaining, and that's another thing with my tracks. I've always got my sidechain at the top up here, so I've got one that's set for the whole, just basically doing the drum beat, but just kick and snare, which is this layer here. And then I've got one for just the snare, and one for the kick. So it's basically, this is a default in all my projects as well. So it's just having this exact same sidechain setup. It's just kind of, so it's good and ready to go. It's nice and easy, simple to use. And so I've got that post the reverb. So it's basically this is sidechaining that reverb send, just so the drums can cut through a bit, so it's not getting too washed out, kind of the kick and the snare, just to give a bit more clarity. So it's quite a nice little touch, if it's only subtle as well. And then onto G, I've got two instances of some Waves plugins, which I'm not entirely sure what they do, but they're drum related, and it's pretty unprofessional of me to be absolutely clueless, but I think just having these, just add something to the drums, which I think is, yeah, just gives them a little bit of life to them. They're just like comps, basically. So one is the CLA drum comp from Waves, and the other one is JJP. I think I've just got them both set on presets. I don't think I've done much to them. One's doing set to snare bottom and one's set to cowbell. Don't know why, it's just the way I like them sounding. But yeah, it's kind of just heavily compressing the drums mainly, and I'll use it on bass as well. But yeah, I'll show you how that sounds now. So if I go onto this, so what it's really doing is just kind of supporting the drums a bit and filling them out with compression, but not onto the actual drums itself, so parallel, like I would be doing with C, D and E. But yeah, again, you could, it's not an essential thing to do it all, it's just something I do, and I think it helps with my drums, it just helps them come through the mix a bit more. Yeah, it's nothing too intense. And if you overuse it, it can just sound like shit, so you just be careful with it. And then my final send is like my drum verb. So again, this was just a subtle one, but just a small room with small size, small decay, full wet, sending my drums to that, basically, just to give, like you would with a band, if the drummer was in a room playing, you'd get a bit of room ambience. That's basically what I'm using H for, is just room ambience. And yeah, so finally onto my master. Ignore the camel fat, because that's doing nothing. I've always got a span on my master. And for anyone that doesn't know what span is, it's free, wicked plugin. All it is just a spectrum analyzer. It's yeah, works wonders. And for anyone that doesn't work with a spectrum analyzer, try and get into the habit of working with one. It makes like a world of difference. In this setup for the moment, I've got a screen over there, and basically I'll be working on this screen here, and this will always be on the second screen, just so I'm aware of where everything's hitting frequency wise, and also with the correlation meter. This is to do with your stereo field. Thank you. So this is basically just keeping an eye on where everything's placed within the stereo field. So you don't want it far too stereo or completely mono, unless you do want it completely mono. It's totally your call. But it's just always good to look at that, and just in case you're worrying about phasing. So yeah, wicked plugin to have on that. Chuck that on the master. Just keep an eye on it all the time. Wicked bit of kit. And then when I'm producing as well, I'll always work into a limiter. I know some people don't. I know some people do. Again, I think this is more of just depends on if you want to do it or not, kind of thing. Depends what works, so it's your preference. But I find just working into a limiter just means I can kind of know how my final product's gonna sound without having to kind of worry too much. So it means I'll make sure I'm kind of not smashing stuff into it, so I'm not clipping into the limiter or anything. So like I'll be aiming for about -6 or 5 dB before the limiter, and then chuck a limiter on as I'm working into it, and work into that and mix into the limiter. So I know that when I come down to bounce a pre, and then that goes into mastering, I know that I'm going to get a solid result from that, if that makes any sense. I know some people prefer not to, but yeah, I think it's a good thing to do. Definitely helps a lot with me, I reckon. But yeah, I think that'll probably be it for the intro. I've dragged that on for ages. Hopefully I can cut a bit of that out in post, but we'll see. But yeah, I'll talk you through drums and that. But I am going to have to open another project, because I remember I had to bounce out my main drums just to save a bit of CPU. I'm just going to delete all this for now. So here is the Never Too Old drums on their own. So this is how they sound like. So yeah, it's made up of probably a stupid amount of layers. It's too much. But there's this layer here, which is my main hits. But this is made up from, this is a resample basically. So what I had to do is, I did have them in this project originally, but it was just eating up too much CPU. So I had to resample them out, get rid of my original, and just use the one block audio. And this is how this sounds. Yeah, I'll run up that other project now and run through that, and then I'll open up into the main one again. Hey, welcome back. We are now in the original drum project from Never Too Old, the bit before I bounced that out, basically. So this is the main body of the drums, and so it's built up of 3 main layers. I've got my hits, and my tops, and then shakers. And so I'll run through hits first, and so basically all my main hits here I run through. I use drum rack a lot within Ableton. I know some people do, some people don't. Like either way you do it, it's all the same result, so it doesn't really matter. But for me, I just think it just makes it a bit easier. It gives you a lot of control and freedom over what you can do with the samples, especially with drum work. And yeah, I just find it can clean things up a bit and just keep things nice and simple. Okay, so this is my main drum hits. And so we've got, first one's made up of kick and a snare, obviously. So we've got my kick. It's made up of 3 different ones. We've got, I'm guessing this one's the main. That's pretty much it. So that's the main kick, providing most of the body and the weight for the kick, and then just a proper little pokey number just to add to it. And I've taken a little cut off the low end just so there's not too much clashing going on within the kicks themselves. And then the third one, just a really electric kind of toppy one, again taken off the low. And then on the kick bus itself, they're just running through a compressor, and that is it. But yeah, just really light compression, just to take the peak out of it. Nothing too major, but it'll just glue it together nicely. Yeah, that's all 3 kicks together. With kicks, it's literally 1 can be enough. It just totally depends on the vibe or the track I'm doing, or if I think the kick needs something else. It can basically just be one kick can be enough. It's all about sample selection rather than working with a shit sample and trying to make it sound good. So it's just finding the good ones basically and working with it. But yeah, so that's my kick. And then snare, I've made up for 3 layers again. You've got a nice clap, which again is making up a lot of the top end of the kit of the snare. On that, I've literally no processing on that one. I think that's from the Lynx sample pack. I could be wrong. And then we've got a proper little tin boy here. And this one this comes through quite a lot in this whole snare itself. You can hear it as like the little ringer. But again, processing wise on that hit, nothing. Just pitch. That's another thing which is quite a big deal with drums and to do with phasing. When you're layering, that's extremely important, is pitch. If you can get samples pitched right together, it can just make a world of difference. Because you could have the 2 best sample hit snares you could. So let's say you find the best 2 snares you could ever find, put them together, sound like dog shit. It could be because of pitch, it could be because of phase alignment, but just play about the pitch. It's yeah. It seems simple to say, but it makes a hell of a difference. But anyway, the third sample in my snares is just a little rim. And then yeah, together they sound like this. And then effects wise on post, isn't much going on. Just again a slight bit of compression, just to take down the peaks and glue them a bit. A little bit of EQ just to take out some of like the real low end mud that's just not needed, and a little dip there. And then on top of that, just a bit of drive, just to give it just to liven it up a bit. It's another big thing with drums is distortion can make a world of difference. It's amazing how far a little bit of distortion can go. So if I just A-B it. It's only subtle, but it's just, yeah, it just adds a nice little bit of life to the kind of top end where I've added it here. But yeah, highly recommend distortion on drums, but don't overdo it unless that's what you're going for. Then do. And then yeah, I think I've got that being sent to ascend within my drum bus. I don't really do this anymore because it always gets a bit confusing, but yeah. So the way I've done it here, I've got a reverb send within my drum bus, drum rack, set here, and you can see it here, A, and it's literally just reverb, small decay time, big size, just to give the snare a little bit of verb. So if I was to zero it, so that's off. And that's on. It's just, yeah, gives the snare a nice bit of room, a bit of life to it, which is always nice to have. And yeah, on my hats, we'll see what we've got. We've got just a straight hat there, nothing major. But within here, this is one thing with drum rack which I find is an absolute blessing, is you can just change the velocity in here really easily. So you just hold Alt and drag up and down, and it will change the velocity of a sample. And that's something I do a lot with hats and stuff, just to create variation and give drums a bit more of a human feel. So you'll hear in the hats, in this, or on this mainline hat here, where it's dipping in and out, but it's following. So every time the kick hits, it's dipping. Every time the snare hits, it's dipping. So it's going kind of thing. So you get that drum and bass rhythm through that line of hats. So you hear it now. So yeah, and velocity is another great thing with drums to do. So you can just give everything a bit more of a human feel. Like if I was to just completely have these at the same, you hear what I mean. So it just sounds way too artificial for what I was going for. If you're going for like a techier sound, or if you're making like techno, it's maybe that's what you want. That's totally fine. But yeah, so play about with velocity, it's always great. But anyway, back to hats. So that's my main line. That's the kind of hat that keeps everything rolling. And then I've got two here, which are doing, I'm not exactly sure, let's have a look. So we've got one kind of on the offbeat, and then just pan slightly to the left, and then another one that's panned slightly to the right on every eighth. And then you combine that with the main, and you get just get a nice little bit of rhythm. And I've just panned these two a little bit just to start stepping into the stereo field a bit, just so I'm kind of spreading everything out a bit and not clogging up that main line. In regards to hats, I think that's it. I know I've got an open one here as well, but I think that's for the end of the phrase. Yeah, there you go. So if I have these, and yeah, another massive thing with drums is just sample selection again. I know I've said it before, but extremely good thing to focus on. So yeah, processing wise, I've literally done nothing from what I can tell. Yeah, nothing, not even EQing, which is quite rare. Normally I do, but this is a bit of an older track now, so things have changed a bit. But yeah, so zero processing, post. I've sent these to the same reverb bus as the snare, just to give him a bit of room. Which again, just that fills it out quite nicely. That's probably why I didn't do anything. And then on to little percuss fills. So little bits of just percussion. I'm pretty sure these would just be like little hits, little bits of this, little bit of that. Nothing too extreme. So yeah, there's two main ones here. We've got like a little tin, little jingle bell kind of thing. Not that one. That one. And then a proper little crunch. Again, these just little extra bits that would kind of work alongside the percussion just to give everything a bit of movement and a bit of variation. I'm just going to show you on span here. So my high end is kind of dipping somewhere between mono and kind of into the stereo field a bit. So it's not all the way over here where it's just complete stereo land. It's kind of hitting somewhere nicely here, and that's kind of how the whole drums themselves will be hitting. Yeah, just nice to point out. But yeah, that is my main hits of the drum tracks. Processing wise, on the drum rack itself, I've got nothing going on, so don't worry about it. So underneath my drum rack where my hits are, I normally chuck some sort of loop cut up to kind of match the rhythm that I'm going for, just as a way of supporting. And on this one, I think I've used on the Lynx ones again. Give it a listen. Yeah, so it's mainly just kick and snare support, just to help. Yeah, just helps beef them up a bit, keeping them just in check, really. It's just a nice little reunion of beats, I reckon. But yeah, they've just been pitched, nothing major. I don't think I've got anything effect wise going on. So yeah, all pretty straightforward. So that's my hit layout. And then for tops, I think I was quite lazy here and mainly just used quite a lot of loops, which you should never be afraid of. I know there's a little bit of stigma around using loops and that, but I wouldn't stress it. There's ridiculous amounts of people that use loops, from big and large. So yeah, in the way of tops, I've got this layer here, which again is just another straight drum loop. I've just high passed it. Nothing too major. I just find chucking in some nice tops helps fill in that top end of drums. And the thing with drums is that kind of all the energies are in the top end. With like, you don't want to overdo it, otherwise it just ends up sounding like a kind of essy mess. But yeah, just having a lot of high stuff filling out just really kind of brings the drums together as a whole. Yeah, back to this. I've got a kind of a shaker, I think. Again, processing wise, nothing too major. I was pretty lazy with these, just chucked them in just to kind of support the hits, and they've been doing their job. So yeah, keep it simple, I suppose. And then the final one is Urban Dawn Shuffle, I think. But yeah, just high passed again, just take out what I want. So together they sound like this. And then with the hits, so I'll take the tops out now just as a kind of an A-B, just so you can hear the difference. So hits on our own. And now with the tops. kind of fills in that top end nicely. And then on top of all that is my shakers. I think these two are from the breakage pack, and that's another Urban Dawn one. I'm guessing there's minimal processing on these as well, because these are all just great sounding. So if it sounds good, why change it, you know? And it works for everything else. So the first one's this. Just your average kind of tambourine kind of sound. Again, similar to that. This one's got a little bit more rhythm to it. And then the Urban Dawn one, just kind of filling out a little bit of a lower range. And all together, so yeah, that's kind of the way in samples and loops that will go into making the main body of my drums. And then on the drum bus, processing wise, so yeah, I'll talk you through do this, because some people get a bit confused. So the way I do buses is just create an audio track. So I'll just label that drum. And then, so I'll select what I want to send to the drum bus, go to audio 2, and then I'll select drum. And now these three here will all head to this audio channel here, drum. And all I've got to do is set to in, so it's monitoring in. And then solo that. So yeah, that's the way I do buses. There's other ways of doing it, but that's the one that I find works best for me, especially on my primitive Ableton 9. But yeah, so on the drum bus itself, like as you saw when I put them into drums, the drums themselves were peaking. So I'm starting off with a Camel Fat, which is just an all-round amazing plugin for anybody that hasn't got it. Really good. But yeah, basically I'm just using really minimal distortion here. And yeah, a little side note with Camel Fat. If I just make a copy of it. I don't know how it works, but if you have a if you clear a clear Camel Fat with nothing else on it, it basically, I don't get how it does it, but it stops stuff peaking, but without limiting it or without compromising the sound. It's I don't know why or how it does it, but it does. It's just something I learned off watching a Turno tutorial. I remember he did it, and it's just, yeah, it's really handy if you're just trying to get a bit of headroom digitally. Just a kind of fun little side fact. I don't know why it does it. If anybody at Camel Audio is out there and fancies letting me know, please tell me. But yeah, anyway, back to what I've got. Basically just tiny bit of distortion, a little bit of tube, and a tiny bit of exciter, and then that is it. But it makes a world of difference. So if we play it, I'll just AB it. So that's off. And that's on. So you can just hear there's just this distortion itself just fills everything out nicely and just brings everything forward within the mix. And yeah, distortion on drums is a heavily underrated thing, but just go easy on it. And so yeah, next on my list is a mid and side EQ. So what I'm doing here is just taking out, so the mid here stands for mono, so this is what's going straight down the middle. And then sides is your sides, so that's what's in the stereo. So yeah, really you don't want anything in the sub range hitting your stereo or in your stereo field. So I've just taken out, I don't know if there is actually anything here, but there might be, we'll have a look. Yeah, very slight bit of mud, but very minimal. Not really needed, but it's there anyway. And I'm just kind of boosting the top end a bit on the sides. So I've left the mono completely as it is. There's no need to touch it because it's fine the way it is. But here, just boosting the top end a bit, just so we're getting a little bit of more width in the sides. And then after that, I've added another bit of distortion, but this is Ableton's own. Again, just to crunch up the drums a bit and just, yeah, get them hitting nice, I suppose. So I'll do a little A-B now. So this is on. Off. Again, only subtle, but it does make a difference. And then after that, I've got it running through a glue compressor, literally just taking off the tiniest peak and giving it a tiny bit of makeup and using it as more of a limiter than anything else, just so I'm not going above 0 or wherever I'm at. Yeah, but I just find just having that just kind of completes any drum chain. And then yeah, if this was any other project and my main drums were actually in the project, I'd use my sends here. So I'd probably add a bit of verb on my H. And then a bit to my random drum compression send I've got with bit G. And then probably a bit of E just to give that low end on the kick a bit of that. And that's kind of it for. So then what I did here was basically just exported it out, or I think because it was in the other track, I just made an audio and selected audio from resample and just recorded it. So yeah, so once that's out, then I've got that whole bit there bounced and ready to go. So it saves me a lot of CPU, but takes away a bit of freedom with what I can do with it, but it doesn't really matter because it sounds good and it's good to go, so it's not that much of an issue. And then all I'll do is just chuck that into my user library, probably somewhere where I'll find it, not just random like that, and then just name it so I can find it at a later date. Yeah, so I'll roll back into the full project because I did some more drum work within the project itself that I didn't bounce out. Only minimal stuff. I think it was just a bit of break work. Right. So we're back in the main project. Just going to delete all this because we just don't need it for now. Okay, here we are. So this is what we bounced out earlier. So that's what we bounced out earlier. These kind of effects here. So I've got a low pass, high pass, bit of reverb and delay. They're all off at the moment, but these are, I use these basically for like end of phrases and stuff. So I'll probably use some here. I actually didn't. Let's have a look. Probably here. There you go. Yeah, so that just simple stuff, nothing too major, just kind of end phrase stuff for going into different sections. And I think this here is just a copy of this, but just for the intro, where it's just a cut down version, mainly just so I don't have to keep automating stuff. It's just a lazy way of doing it, but works, so why not? Yeah, So basically it's just a quite high pass version with the same kind of build of effects. So that's the main hits that we did last time, a couple of seconds ago, a minute ago. So yeah, here's my break layer. There's a lot of stuff in here, probably too much, but I definitely get a bit carried away with them. But we'll see what we've got. So this is the break layer that sits on top of the main. So that's the breaks by themselves, and with the main we get this. And so within the break layer itself, we've got, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different breaks. This one here, I've heard it used so many times. I cannot remember the actual name of it, but I know it's in one of the random drum and bass break packs, and it's 134, so I just remember it from that. But it's been in loads of tunes. It's just got that pitched up and low passed. That's all it is. Nothing extreme going on, but it just keeps everything rolling along nicely. And then I've got a break from a villain pack. Which again, nothing going on processing wise, keeping it simple, but just going on together, just with a nice clap, just keep everything rolling. And another villain one. But this is more of just a topper. And then final one is just a shaker from the KT pack. And together we get that. Nothing too major, probably not needed, but it rolls quite nicely with the main hits and just keeps everything ticking along. And I've got a percussion layer again, and I can see some more breaks in here already. I think these is mainly all breaks, so I don't know why I didn't label this as breaks. But yeah, we'll dive into this one as well. So yeah, this is the perk layer. So we've got the classic think, just doing its thing. So yeah, everyone should know that break by now. Absolute classic staple within drum and bass. But I've just tightened it up a bit. So normally it sounds like that. But within Ableton, it's got this really handy little feature with warp settings. So if you go into here where it says beats, select beats, you can have it set to whatever. It's just different warp modes. And then I've got it set to transients, but it's normally better to have it on 16s or 8s, depending on what you're wanting to. And it'll basically just cut down the hits if you've got it selected on this mode here. So where the transient is, it will just keep it getting shorter and shorter, so you can get it as tight as you want. So like here, if I bring it right down, you're just kind of getting the main transients from the kick, the snare, and the little hats. Whereas I've got it kind of somewhere in the middle, so you're getting a good mix of both, but so it's tight and not too kind of all over the place. And then below that, I've got the tiny break, or it's just the top end of the tiny break. Again, more just top end stuff to fill out the top end. These two are not in use, so I'll just scrap them. And then here I've just cut up another break just to use as the fills. So I'll show you here. Not sure where that's from, but I've just used it as another thing to keep momentum. Just keep the fill between the kick and the snare, as you do with drum and bass. And so together that sounds like this. Nothing too exotic, all fairly simple stuff. Yeah, just finding the right stuff to work together, I suppose. And then these last bits, these last two channels here are mainly just more effectsy stuff. But so the kick build is just the resampled kick, and I've just taken the kick, and instead of doing it in the actual kick channel itself, I've done it here just to save headspace, I suppose. But all this is doing is just like a kick roll. So yeah, nothing too major, just automating a filter and the gain. Nothing too bad. Now I think this is from another project, but I can't remember which one. It's basically just some extra hats and rides, but I think they're live. So I was using Addictive Drummer, which is a really good plugin for live sounding drums. You can get some really nice sounds from it. But yeah, this is from another project I think that I bounced out ages ago and just kind of chucked in just because it just kind of added a nice little layer. So here you go. So yeah, nothing major, just a kind of couple rides and a hat. But then yeah, so there's a version of it which has a lot more kind of open hats and open rides and stuff, or ringed rides. And I chuck this in here later just to give a little bit of variation to the drums. It's just a nice little element just to keep the drums sounding interesting. And although if within the whole track you probably don't hear it, but it's little things like that that subconsciously you pick up on when you're listening and keep things interesting. And it's always good to have little things like that just to keep with you, I suppose. Just to bear in mind. And yeah, so that sums up my drum work within Never Too Old. I hope that's been alright, and I haven't been too boring. And yeah, peace, and big up to everyone.